As we approach the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, recent traumas within Indigenous communities are highlighting the impact of intergenerational wounds. The head of the Department of Indigenous Studies at the University of Manitoba joined us on BT this morning to explain how recent stories in the news can bring up renewed feelings of trauma this year. We'll start off with what happened in James Smith Cree Nation. This is just in Saskatchewan. Most recently, the mass killings there with the stabbing deaths of several people and many injured. When we are still trying to process what was behind, of course, that story and the trauma there, how can something like that then connect to intergenerational trauma that many in the Indigenous community face and have to deal with?
Well, there's no question what happened there. These were situations involving young men who went through a child welfare system, who entered that system because of poverty. That poverty comes from the Indian Act, from the long series of policies that Canada has put Indigenous peoples under and continue to today. So there's unquestionably an easy explanation of why that situation came to be. But most importantly, it's what do we do now about it? What do we do now about committing to one another? And I think this week is a really good week to think about that, because it's not just about putting on an orange shirt, taking a holiday on Friday, but it's about how do we share resources? How do we commit to each other in a kind and just way?
And of course, the investigation and the continued search, that is something that is ongoing throughout Canada on the sites of former residential schools. How does that investigation and, again, the retrieval and discovery of those unmarked graves, how does that play into trying to heal this trauma?
There's still much work to do to find those graves, figure out where those documents are that will tell us who are in those graves. And then probably most of all, which is that what do we do now? What do we do now that we know that these sites of residential schools involved tremendous bouts of trauma that communities are still living within, but also that Canadians are also going through a traumatic time because they're realizing for the very first time in some cases that Canada is not the place of peace and kindness that perhaps they might have been told in school, but it's also a place where a lot of great things have happened, but also a lot of really terrible things have happened.
Stay tuned to BT on Friday morning. We will have a special show on National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. We'll be highlighting stories from Indigenous Canadians right across the country, hoping to pave that path forward.